Kaido is Joy Boy. But not only that, I believe that Big Mom is also a Joy Boy candidate. And this even includes other people such as Whitebeard or Ace. I know this sounds completely absurd at first, but believe me, after I show you all the evidence that Oda has left, you'll realize how all these characters were at one point or another considered to attain the position of Joy Boy. And furthermore, in this video I'll properly explain what it really means to become the Joy Boy, and what that represents narratively within the context of Oda's story. That said, researching the mysteries of the truth of the One Piece world is a dangerous activity. There are many in the underworld who wish to attain the forbidden information of the Void Century of Unearth, not to mention the ever-prying eyes of the government and the Cipher Pole, which is exactly why a VPN is so useful. This video's sponsor, NordVPN, allows you to connect through a private network that allows you to not only be protected from online threats, but it also gives you access to any content that is region locked to a specific country on up to 6 devices per account. For example, did you know that the entirety of the One Piece manga is available for free from the official Viz website? Sadly, it's region locked to only specific regions, but through NordVPN, you can get access to the entirety of the One Piece manga, as well as dozens and dozens of other Shonen Jump manga, straight from the official source. Get the exclusive NordVPN deal at nordvpn.com/Library of Ohara. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you to NordVPN for helping make this video possible. So to understand what a Joy Boy is, we need to better understand what those words really mean. Because Joy Boy is not a specific person, but rather a title, a position that is achieved after meeting certain requirements. This is no more evident than in chapter 1014, where Kaido stated, "It seems you two couldn't become the Joy Boy." In this case, Luffy had lost his battle against Kaido, left to drown in the sea, so Kaido assumed that Luffy was done for, and as such that he failed to surpass him, not having what it takes to rise to the position of Joy Boy. We've been told several times across the story that a certain figure will one day appear. Whitebeard mentioned in his final words that someone would one day challenge the world to a fight by inheriting will that has been passed down all the way from the Void Century to the present. Otohime mentioned that according to legend, someone would one day rise up to guide the ancient weapons the right way and lead them to bring a change to the world for good, and Oden mentioned that the Wano country would have to open its ports for the day that Joy Boy would one day appear. But it's important to understand that whoever this new person will be, they are not the original Joy Boy of the Void Century. That person was the very first Joy Boy, with the title being passed down across history as many candidates would attempt to become the new Joy Boy, until one day, someone would arise, someone who could guide the ancient weapons towards destroying the world, as Otohime and Iceberg put it, and allowing it to be reborn by bringing a new dawn, the dawn of the world, the Roman's dawn. And given how the image of Joy Boy has often been associated with that of the sun, then it stands to reason that the mythical figure of the sun god Nika is likely one and the same. This Joy Boy, this sun god, is described as someone who will deliver people from suffering by making them laugh. Legend says that one day Nika will free all slaves and those who are oppressed and suffering by delivering laughter, or in other words, to deliver them joy, which is likely why he came to be known as the Joy Boy, the boy that brings people joy. This makes even more sense since Nika is the Japanese sound effect for someone laughing. We already saw how the original Joy Boy was able to deliver joy by making the Roger Pirates laugh through the use of the One Piece treasure. So one day, whenever a new Joy Boy appears, they would have to use the One Piece to deliver laughter all over the world and thus unite the world as one. Which, as I've mentioned several times before in previous videos, I personally believe will all happen through this new Joy Boy throwing the biggest party in the world, connecting all of its people through joy and laughter. And this becomes no more clearer than by realizing that the figure of Nika is literally partying. Dancing and partying in the same way that we've seen Luffy partying like in the past. And so, essentially, the new Joy Boy would have to become the person who is able to deliver that joy to people all over the world. As such, these would be the requirements for one to be considered a candidate to become Joy Boy, as we have seen told in the story. Someone who has the potential, or at least an interest, to attain the ancient weapons, someone who can unite people of many races together to free them from discrimination, someone who would one day go to Wano, someone who loves parties, and someone who attempts to go after the One Piece, with the true Joy Boy being the one who will finally attain it, and thus, just as he was told, would deliver laughter to all in the world. Hey, so this is Arthur from the future here, again. Basically this video's been in production for like a pretty long time. A bunch of things, mostly my health issues, got in the way of publishing this earlier. But since this was done before the Nika reveal in the manga, I wanted to quickly elaborate on why that doesn't really contradict anything in this video. So in chapter 1043, Zunisha claimed that Joy Boy had returned because of Luffy's ability as Nika. This would suggest at first that to quote-unquote become Joy Boy, you must eat the fruit, but we later find out this is actually not the case. Zunisha mentions in a later chapter how it simply saw Joy Boy in Luffy, and how the drums of liberation reminded it of a familiar rhythm. But ultimately, it's not sure if Luffy is the definitely, for sure, Joy Boy, or it simply wants to believe in it. So, while there is some connection between Nika and Joy Boy, simply having the Nika fruit does not make you the Joy Boy. Rather, it's a title that is inherited based on the other requirements we just mentioned, so it doesn't really change anything we don't know so far. Now, the first options that come to mind are relatively obvious. Of course, we have Goldie Roger, as he's the one who made it to the original Joy Boy's treasure. Roger had a crew, friends, and allies of mixed races. He managed to make it to Wano, he loved parties, and even managed to make it all the way to Laugh Tale, where he found and saw the One Piece with his own eyes. However, Roger lacked a fundamental criteria to become the new Joy Boy. He was too early, because the ancient weapons had not been reborn yet, and without them he couldn't fulfill the criteria of guiding the weapons to bring a change for good, just like Otohime foretold. And as such, without being able to unite the world through the weapons, he left the One Piece behind because he knew he wasn't Joy Boy, and there wouldn't be any point to use the treasure on a world that was still divided. However, when inquired on who would find the One Piece, Roger said that it would be his son, Portugas the Ace. Roger quite firmly believed that his kid would become the new Joy Boy, and he wasn't the only one to think so. Sengoku claimed that if Ace were not to be stopped, he would become the leader of a new generation of pirates, just like Oden claimed that the new Joy Boy would one day lead a new generation of pirates, the War's generation, to the new world, something we are seeing playing in the story right now. Yamato also similarly believed that Ace was the great pirate who would become the new Joy Boy, before realizing that person was in fact much more likely to be Luffy, as Luffy shared the exact same dream that both Roger and likely the original Joy Boy also had, the one I mentioned before of the world's biggest party. Ace did in fact fit several of the Joy Boy criteria. He loved parties and he even made it to Wano just like it was said Joy Boy would, but Ace had no interest in the road poneglyphs or finding the One Piece, so ultimately he was simply a false Joy Boy who was mistaken by many to be the one who would change the world simply because of his bloodline. But with that said, Ace himself has already stated who the new Joy Boy, the person who would lead this new generation, would be. Not him, but his little brother, Monkey D. Luffy. And Luffy is undoubtedly the one who best fits this position of being the new Joy Boy. He has united people of many races, he has come to Wano, wants to throw the biggest party in the world, has become friends and become a guiding figure to one of the ancient weapons, if not potentially more depending on who or what they may end up being, and is now several road poneglyphs in to go en route to Laugh Tale. If Luffy is able to guide the ancient weapons and find the One Piece, then that would make him the true Joy Boy, someone who with the One Piece will deliver joy and laughter to all in the world. But that's something that hasn't happened yet, and because of that, there are other candidates who have attempted, at some point or another, to become the Joy Boy. And of course, this includes Kaido. Kaido said Luffy could not become the Joy Boy either, indicating he knew someone else who also tried to become Joy Boy, but it seems that might actually be himself. Think about it, Kaido pretty much fits all those criteria. He's someone who possesses a crew of people from different races, including a fishman like Jack or a Lunarian like King. Kaido loves parties and in fact throws a massive party, the Golden Kaguya, every single year, and Kaido came to Wano specifically because the place was special, as it was said it was where Joy Boy would go. Kaido has an interest in attaining the ancient weapons, as well as discovering more of the true history, and just like he told King, Kaido believed that not only could he change the world, but that he was the only person who would be able to do so, to the point that King originally believed that Kaido could have become the Joy Boy. In fact, technically, Kaido's name in Japanese is written in its phonetic reading in katakana, but if we were to keep the pronunciation the same and instead write his name down with kanji, it could be written with the kanji Kaido, which derives from certain Japanese folktales to refer to certain young oni. As such, this kanji of Kaido quite literally reads as cheerful and child, and of course, cheerful child could also be seen as another way to sneakily spell out Joy Boy, which makes the fact that Oda might have planned this all along even all the more impressive. But more than anything, think about it. Joy Boy is said he would deliver smiles and laughter to so many people. And what is it exactly that Kaido does? He delivers smiles. And with them he brings people laughter. Through the smiles that Kaido delivers, many end up laughing. But this is a very stark difference to the type of joy that someone like Luffy would bring, a dark take on the idea of bringing laughter to the world by quite literally forcing it on others. This isn't what being the Joy Boy really means, so in a sense, Kaido never really managed to become the Joy Boy, because his way of delivering laughter was not the right one. Kaido simply doesn't fit the ideals that Oda wants to convey through the concept of Joy Boy. But Kaido is not the only one who ended up doing this the wrong way, because someone else who could be considered as much of an equal Joy Boy candidate would be Big Mom. Big Mom is someone who loves tea parties, someone who made it to Wano, someone who wants to tame the ancient weapons, and someone who has one of the road poneglyphs, making her one of the closest people to the One Piece alongside Kaido. But more importantly than anything, Big Mom pretty much has a very similar vision of the world as Joy Boy did. She wants to create a world where all species can live together without discrimination. Quite literally, put from Mother Carmel's words, she wanted to create a quote-unquote brighter world where all people join hands and laugh together. The exact definition of what Joy Boy wanted to create. Except that in this case it was all built on a lie, and Big Mom does not pursue these ideals from legitimate virtue, but from delusion and a selfish and personal view. And that could perhaps be why, despite all her struggles, she hasn't managed to become Joy Boy. Her inability to deliver true equality and real laughter, instead making her subjects and family live in fear of her, have made her incapable of becoming the Joy Boy. Or, well, the Joy Girl, I guess. But what about someone like Whitebeard? Yes, could he too have been a Joy Boy candidate? After all, he united many people from many races under his family and territories. He loved parties and, yes, even made it to Wano by chance. But he himself was not interested in the treasure or changing the world, so instead of becoming Joy Boy himself, he became the gatekeeper to the treasure and the position, quite literally the new gate to the new era of the one who would become the new Joy Boy, which in his final speech mentioned would one day appear. And in a sense, Shanks could also be considered to fulfill a similar role as someone who decided to not become Joy Boy, but instead act as a conduit between the nearly achieved Joy Boy that was Roger and the one he placed the hopes of becoming the new Joy Boy, Luffy. Much like Whitebeard groomed Ace in the hopes he would one day become the new Joy Boy, as Sengoku put it, Shanks also placed his hopes on Luffy to see if he could make it to the end of his dream. And that's without going into the likes of someone like Blackbeard and how he's able to bring laughter to those around him, but only those in his favor, letting all others sink into darkness. Among all these candidates to Joy Boy, between he who was too early, he who was not interested, those who renounced the position to open a path to the new era, those who failed to become it altogether, and those still pining for the position, Luffy has interacted and ran past all of these individuals, slowly rising to the top, to the pinnacle, to make it above all of them and become the true Joy Boy. Honestly, looking back at it, it's really fascinating to look at this with the lens of how Oda has structured One Piece. At the beginning of the story in East Blue, we mostly only see villains who are basically Grand Line rejects. People who think of themselves as the strongest alive, but who actually ran away from the Grand Line because they simply couldn't make it there. Then, making our way through Paradise, we interact with New World rejects, people who seriously attempted to become Pirate King, that were stopped in their tracks by a Yonko. And now, finally, within the New World, we're going against failed candidates to become Joy Boy. People who legitimately were that close to becoming the one who could change the world, but who failed from reaching the very pinnacle because they misunderstood the ideals being Joy Boy stood for. Now Luffy attempting to surpass them as well. Joy Boy, in essence, means to be the one who can change the world, the one who can surpass all others and make it to the pinnacle, but most importantly, to be the one who will be able to not only find the One Piece, but also use it to be able to properly deliver laughter to the entire world. And when you think about it, that's really what brings and connects all these candidates of Joy Boy together. Because, of course, what is it that connects people together but sake? I have already talked in depth in my True History videos about just how important the idea of sake is to One Piece and to the idea of the party, so if you haven't seen that yet, I would highly recommend you do because it'll help you understand this a lot better. But whoever becomes the new Joy Boy undoubtedly needs to become someone capable of delivering sake. And that perhaps is what helps prove how all these people are candidates to becoming Joy Boy. You have someone like Roger who loved exchanging sake, or someone like Ace who helped lay that first step to Luffy's dream by exchanging sake with him. You have someone like Whitebeard who loved drinking sake and exchanging cups with his sons to become like family, just like Big Mom does as well. Someone like Blackbeard who always carries sake with him and slammed it down to the ground as symbology that dreams never end, and someone like Shanks who understood the real meaning of sake more than almost anyone else. But of course, to come full circle, what is it that Kaido always does? He always drinks sake. He drinks so much of it to the point that he often becomes drunk. Nothing better encompasses Kaido being a failed Joy Boy than him becoming a depressed drunkard. Someone who is always drinking sake, alone, on his own, in a desperate attempt to try and convince himself that he is not a failed Joy Boy, and that he is someone worthy of delivering sake. Kaido is someone who is not able to deliver laughter and smiles in a joyful way, instead forcing others to laugh, so all he can do is drink his sorrows away as much as he can until he forces himself to laugh.